find out about diversity in media, there's no better person to talk to than Baroness Oona, Diversity Executive at Channel 4.
Concentrating at the moment on a study on European diversity and European benchmarking, so we can see what the best practices in public sector broadcasters are.
Have you learnt about the best ways to encourage lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender programming and diversity at Channel 4?
And what I learned in general, if we're going to change attitudes and get more underrepresented groups on TV, first of all, it has to be led from the very top in companies. Secondly, you have to take a wider definition of diversity, because too often people just get hung up on one thing. You know, it might just be black people for one moment or disabled people for another. All too often it's not only LGBT. But so we need to get what diversity is better explained to people in a company. And the other thing that I learnt is that you have to, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, link diversity to the bottom line, i.e. commercial value in broadcasting. And that's quite simple in some ways, because it just means getting more eyeballs looking at a TV set. That's what broadcasters want to know. And if you cut off because you don't reflect underrepresented groups, especially LGBT with their higher spending power, then you're impacting on your ability to deliver your business model. And lesbians really aren't portrayed very often, and certainly not to reflect the population at large. And I think we need to get away from those stereotypes.
You talk about top down, but I wonder about grassroots up and how you get the community involved.
I think grassroots organisations, and I work with many of them, ever feel well enough integrated. They too often feel shut out. But my point is, unless you have the head of an organisation telling their commissioners you must go out and engage the grassroots, then it doesn't happen, because quite often it takes more time, it takes more thought, and you have to dig a bit harder to get to those groups that are really on the coalface.
How do you think you can fight the perception among LGBT audiences that they're not well represented on television?
Of the LGBT community, what we found was that although across the country the national average is about 8% of Britain's population, there are different figures you can take, but our researchers took 8%. If you look on screen, representation is only around 1%. It goes up to about 1.5% if you take into account people that we know are gay but are not necessarily announcing that or broadcasting it in a particular programme. So I know what the representation levels are, because I had to go out and commission the research. It was the first time we did it across different broadcasters to compare it.
As we're going through wider acceptance of our lifestyles and LGBT people are better accepted in society, how do you think we'll see the coverage changing? Will there be more of it, less of it? Will it be more mainstream?
The issue about whether you have more mainstreaming or whether you have more programmes that are specifically about whether it's sexuality or gender or age or any of the other groups, that's an important one. One of our real focuses was to say, look, those specific programmes for gay people, for disabled people, for women, they're important, but they will never be more than max 10%, probably only 5% of what a TV channel is putting out. So actually, we want to really look at what's happening in that other 95%. Why aren't LGBT people mainstreamed in that 95% of programming, not just in a ghetto in the corner? Now, yes, we want programmes that are specifically around LGBT issues, that are of specific interest to the LGBT community, but the LGBT community should just be there in mainstream Britain as well. And that's the trick at the moment, is seeing how we can increase those figures quite considerably.
Oona, thank you very much.
From Channel 4, to check the current economic climate in the gay zone, a Gay Business Association commentary.
it is going to be very, very tough for all of us. And but there are some good news and some bad news. I think we've seen a trend of gay bars doing not quite so well. There's been a lot of closures of gay bars around the country. On the other hand, we've just seen the biggest ever gay cruise sailing out from Fort Lauderdale. So that I think that the gay market is slightly different from the rest of the general market, in as much as that we still have more disposable income to spend on certain segments like entertainment and travel. But we are still going to face the same problems as everyone else. Higher costs of food, rent, petrol, those sorts of things are going to affect all of our businesses.
We've got an added advantage because obviously the LGBT community really is probably one of the most targeted in a way, because a lot of people want to have the ping pong and they want to actually really to have more and more input really into a community.
So I think the very good for gay business is getting closer and swapping maybe services between members in higher values. So it could be more profitable for members and also whole economy.
More of us are having children, of course. That's another thing that used to differentiate the gay market from the general market. With more children coming into the gay world, that means that we are spending money just like everyone else on education, travel, clothing, that sort of thing. The gay people without children are still going to want to party.
What it is like to be in the business of sex worker activism. Meet Thierry Schaffauser.
To bring new concepts about identities and the fact that for me being sex workers is being part of a sexual minority and it's not just a job for me, and it's not just a job because of the stigma attached to sex work. People may say that sex workers activities glamorize prostitution because many people say, oh, I really choose my work and all that. When people ask you what do you do for a living, what do you in life, and then either you have to lie or you have to tell the truth, and then you put yourself in the same situation when you're gay or when you're part of a minority that has to experience this process of coming out or not. But the fact that also myself experience about violence when I was working on the streets, it also something that convinced me that we need to have rights, to have protection. The fact that the police didn't protect me at that time because they were saying that I shouldn't be there. There are laws against soliciting, and basically they were not interested in my protection, and the police officer told me that. He even said, if I find you dead on the sidewalk, I will laugh at you because I warned you enough that you shouldn't be here and it's a dangerous place. And that's something I will always remember, because I think that show really what is unfair in all these sex work policies is that we're excluded from citizenship. We just for being a sex worker. There've been murders last year in Bradford. There were also murders in Ipswich in 2006, and I'm talking only about the mediatized murders, because we know there are other sex workers who have been murdered, but they don't do the storylines of the headlines of the media. Now the police start to realize that sex workers are also other human beings that also deserve to be protected and crimes to be investigated. Realize actually what attracts violence is not the fact to be a sex worker, is the fact that we are criminalized, and then people think we're not protected, and then we think we are easy targets, and also the stigma, and also the old society views. I think the difference maybe between women or male sex workers, LGBT sex workers, is that people maybe see us less as victims. Maybe they see us more as like pretty idiots or like sexual perverts, and maybe they think they would say it's our fault if something happens to us more than for women. I think maybe the best way to stop that is to be more visible, to show them that we're like everyone else.
writer and journalist Johann Hari, who was delivering a speech at Village Drinks event. Is there a gay agenda?
Well, obviously people like the Daily Mail are constantly alleging there's a gay agenda, which is that we want to indoctrinate children and somehow make them gay. In reality, there is a very simple gay agenda. It is to make sure that gay people are treated exactly the same as everyone else. That's it. That's the sum total of gay people's ambitions, is to say there should be no prejudice, no discrimination, and they should be given the same rights and the same responsibilities as everyone else. Now, at the moment, that's not the case. There have been huge advances in legal equality, which we are really grateful for, and lots of British people have opened their hearts and changed their minds, and gay people are really grateful and proud to be British that that has happened. There are still some areas where we've got a lot of work to do. Gay kids are 6 times more likely to commit suicide than heterosexual kids. You know, that could be anyone's child. You know, we've got to have policies to deal with that in schools, teaching about homosexuality, punishing homophobic bullying. That's the only gay agenda, you know, to make sure that kids are safe and gay people are treated the same as everyone else.